Hello and welcome back to Everyday Writers, your one-stop shop for demystifying the writing process. We're here to be helpful guides on your journey to becoming a published author. I'm one of your hosts, Crystal McQueen.
And I'm your other host, Jordan S. Keller. And on today's bonus author interview, we would like to welcome to the show Jane Ann Turzillo.
Jane Ann Turzillo is a multinational Federation of Press Women Award winner for her books and journalism. She has been nominated twice for the Agatha Christie Award for her books Wicked Women of Ohio and Unsolved Murders and Disappearances in Northeast Ohio. She is a graduate of the University of Akron with degrees in criminal justice technology and mass media communication. She is a member of National Federation Press Women, Society of Professional Journalists, Mystery Writers of America, and Sisters in Crime. Welcome to the show, Jane.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So, on your website, Jane, I read that your granny would tell you historical stories when you were growing up about her hometown in Coleman, Michigan. Is that where
Yeah.
your love of history began?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, she used to take us out to she was born in a little town called Coleman, Michigan, up about the center of the state. And she would spread a blanket on the grass, and she would have fixed us sandwiches. When I say us, I'm talking about my sister, Mary. And we would have a picnic, and she would just tell us about the people that were buried there. And she'd take us around to the tombstones, and of course, a lot of her family, my ancestors, were buried there. And as I grew older, I realized that she was telling us the history of Michigan.
Wow. I love that. I love that so much. So foundationally, you started as a police and crime reporter in your area. Can you talk a
Right.
little bit about the moment when you decided to expand that love into craft and into books? And if there were any challenges of moving from being a journalist to being a writer? Yeah, well,
Um,
that is a writer. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
A
yeah,
novelist.
yeah, yeah. Well, I kind of fell into the journalism by mistake, or not mistake, but not really a mistake, no, but by accident. And it was while I was getting my criminal justice degree, and the head of the criminal justice department read one of the stories that I had written in a magazine in New Orleans, and it was about an old time counterfeiter. And he said they're looking for a reporter in this. It was a small town newspaper, and he said, I think that you should, you know, uh, put your resume in. And so I kind of scared me to do something like that, but he told me to do it, so I had to do it, and I did, and I got the job. The thing was that there was a woman who was she was writing the police and fire news, and I got stuck with what we used to call the kitty corps and the nursing home beat.
Oh, okay.
And but after a year or so, or a couple of years, the woman who was doing she was quite a bit older than me, um, that was doing the police news, had the good graces to die.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
I've never heard that expression like that. That's perfect.
isn't it terrible of me to say? Uh, and
It's
uh,
unique of you to say.
so, I stepped up and I said, look, I'm about ready to get a degree in criminal justice. How about it? And so I got to do the uh, all the news in the police news and the fire news. And then five of us broke away from that paper, and we started what is, I think, the largest weekly newspaper in the state, which is the West Side Leader.
Wow.
And so I did all the police and fire news there
What's
too. So
you said that that was your professor in college. So this is in Ohio that this all
yes,
happened.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Okay. So
So
just leading into that, like your books take it is Jordan's turn. I am
Oh no,
jumping way ahead of you. Just because you're
um,
talking about like all the foundation that you had in
yeah.
Ohio and like I mean that's a really impressive story to be like, all right, I'm about to get this degree. Like you should just give it to me. Like good on you.
With your mention of the New Orleans story, were you living in New Orleans or did you just stumble across the
Oh
counterfeiter
no,
story?
no. I had stumbled across the counterfeiter story, and I guess that's what really got me interested in crime, really.
Hmm.
And he was the biggest and the best in um, probably east of the Mississippi from
Mm.
1819 to 1865, and I just kind of fell in love with him. Um, and well, he was quite handsome.
And rich, apparently.
Oh, well, he got there, yeah. And so I found that story, and he one of his uh, episodes was in New Orleans, and so I wrote a story about that, and it was published in the New Orleans Times-Picayune in their Sunday magazine. So,
Wow.
but I've been to New Orleans, but no, I didn't live there.
Okay.
When you wrote it, did you have the intention of getting it published or was it
Oh,
just,
absolutely.
oh, okay,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I started to write before I went away to school or went to school. Um, I actually started. My sister and I started to write when we were pretty young, um, and it was just we had puppets, marionettes, and
Oh,
we made up stories and stuff. And so I've just always been making up stories or, you know, just just writing this stuff. So
I love that. Like we've had conversations on the show about like when you started writing, and even though like, writing with the intention of getting published happens much later. What we find is very common is that people are writing stories, in their childhood that they grew
yeah,
up just loving stories. So, you know,
yeah.
you're in good company. So your books take place in Ohio. Do you, first of all, like, like how much of your journalism goes into these books? Like, is it stuff that you just discover, as you're writing stories for the paper? And like, would you ever consider expanding, to broader locations? Do you have a dream location that you would love to write about?
Oh, gee, I don't know that I've ever thought. Well, I wouldn't mind writing about something from Michigan,
Hmm.
um, because that's where I was born.
Yeah.
Um, and probably the West, somewhere in the West.
Oh,
I really love Western history and stuff like that. I mean, my dogs. I have a German Shepherd. His name is Doc Holliday, and and he did have a brother who has passed away, whose name was Wyatt Earp, and
Oh.
now my other dog is Pretty Boy Floyd.
I'm sensing a theme.
Yes, but yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't. I'd like to write about something in the West. But you know what? Everything that I look at and I read a lot. I take a uh, Wild West magazine, and people give me books about the West and stuff. But everybody that's really interesting has already been written about, and I can't do it any better. So
well, so there, do you remember the Pinkertons? Like they were the original Secret Service.
the what?
The Pinkertons.
Oh
Um,
yes. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And they would
Yes.
like, escort money across, with railroad
Yes.
stations. But they were the first, and I don't know the woman's name, but they were the first to hire a woman
Yes.
as one of their spies because she could go into places that they couldn't. And I would just love like to read a book about her that's, you know, written by a woman. There's a
Yes.
few
Yeah.
out there and like,
Yeah.
she gets a blurb, but just like one from her point of view because she kind of did what you did where she was like she walked in, she was 20 something years old and she was like, I want a job and you guys can't do what I can do. So how
Now,
about it?
yeah,
Yeah.
I have read about her, and I can't think of her name right now.
Yeah, I can't
Um,
remember her
I
either.
don't know whether there is a book about her. I'm looking up at my true crime. I don't know whether you can see my background that I
You've
have
got a ton of books.
well, just a few, just a few. And
Kate,
you can't see the other side over here. It's all books too, and in front of me. So
her name's Kate Warner.
yes, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, you're just talking about your love for the West and stuff like
yeah,
that, and like you've done all these books in Ohio
yeah.
and stuff, and just that's
I've
that's what it made
traveled
me think of.
I've traveled a good deal in the West, and actually my favorite place is Santa Fe.
Mm.
Mm,
So
gorgeous. So on Everyday Writers, on our usual writing episodes, we love discussing the writing process. So if you wouldn't mind, Jane, take us through sort of your step by step. How do you start a project? How do you find the motivation to continue it? And when do you know when your book is done or feel like it's done enough?
Also, can you kind of go into like what research looks like for you?
Oh,
Because neither of
yes.
us write that.
okay. Well, because I write about people so much, first of all, the person has to interest me, and I have to look to see that there's enough to write about that person.
Okay.
And each person is different in how I go about uh, getting the information. But I have I look at old newspapers. I have over the years I have gotten a lot of well, not a lot, but three or four really good uh, law enforcement people that have helped me.
Oh,
Um, and then if I go to a historical society and see if there's okay, for instance, um, I have written a couple of times about a man named Blinky Morgan,
okay.
and he killed a couple of cops. He killed
Mhm.
a police officer, and he killed an Alpena, Michigan sheriff. And this was back in the 1890s, 1887. So, of course, I got stuff from newspapers about him, and a couple of libraries will have photos and stuff, and I'll go to the historical society. I went to the historical society in Alpena, Michigan, and sure enough, there was a police um, dispatcher who knew a lot uh, about the sheriff that was murdered and about that case.
Oh my
So
gosh.
she gave me everything. And then there was also a man up there that was, excuse me, who was uh, very a historical historian, sorry, who had a lot about the murder and everything, and about Charles Blinky. So it's just kind of like one thing leads to another, and then I sit and think, well, where else might I find things? There's also police museums
Mm.
that will have things. It just I have a friend that one of the reasons that I mentioned Charles Blinky Morgan is that I along the way I made a friend named Jason Wood, who is a documentarian,
Okay.
and he's the one that is when you see the uh, uh, Mike DeWine, who was the
Hmm.
May,
Governor.
Ohio
Governor.
governor.
Or
Yeah.
yeah.
When you see him on television, and Jason is the one that's behind the camera,
Oh,
and
Oh, whoa.
so
look how fancy.
we made a documentary on Blinky Morgan, and
So how
so
long does all that research
Yeah.
take? Like you're talking about like I go here, I go here, I go here. Like are we talking about years of research? How
well,
long does it go on?
I only am given a year. That's
Oh,
my yeah, my deadline is usually a year.
Holy
And
moly.
so, but now I have written about him twice.
okay.
Plus, we did the documentary, and so that gave us a lot longer to get more things on him.
Interesting.
So you
So,
give each each book is a year because your books
yes,
are like multi collections, different stories, different people.
yes,
That's so
yes,
impressive.
yes.
So a
Yeah.
year was not just the research, a year is the research
The
and
research and the
writing it.
writing. Yes. Yeah.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, when you stop to think, as a journalist, I would go into a police department, and get however many stories they were working on, and I had to go home and write them and get them ready
Yeah.
for the paper. So, um, but I'm a little bit more I'm a better writer now because I've written more now. The more you write, the better you get. I
Mhm.
Yes.
hope,
Yes.
you know. So,
No, that's amazing. Well, Jane, that is all the time that we have for this bonus episode of Everyday Writers. Thank you so very much for being on the
Yeah.
show. Can you tell our listeners where they might be able to find out more about you, your writing, your books, where they might be able to see you?
well, I think that there's stuff on, of course, on Google, and
That's where I
of
found a
course
lot of the
on,
information.
yeah, yeah, and my website and my books are on, for folks in Ohio, they can probably get them at any of their bookstores.
Okay.
um, I guess they're even in some of the drugstores and supermarkets, but for folks that are from out of the state, Amazon,
Okay.
bookshop.com, or no, it's bookshop.org,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
places like that.
I was gonna say, right at my pharmacy, there's a big like turnstile of Ohio specific books, and I pick up a prescription next week, and I'm so excited to root through it and try to find some of yours.
Yeah.
But join us next time on Everyday Writers, where Crystal and I are going to be discussing how to set your New Year's writing goals with helpful and successful intentions. If you love what you hear on Everyday Writers, don't forget to click that subscribe button down below and follow Crystal and I on Instagram.
And don't forget, every day is a good day to write. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Ooh.